Hello, it is Jack Gill and welcome back to Redmen Academy. We haven't forgotten about the series we were doing, don't you worry. We just had a little break over Christmas and New Year. We're back now though, and I am, as always, joined by James. We've got some great videos planned for 2021. This video is going to be looking at what Liverpool are going to do in January regarding the centre-back crisis that we seem to have had in the first few months of the season, James. James, I want to get your thoughts on this first of all before we go into the little nitty-gritty details of it. Simply put, do Liverpool need a centre-back in January?
Yes, I think we do just sign someone, but I think it needs to be the right kind of player. We're not going to go and spend 40, 50 million on Upamecano or Konate, but at the same time, I can't see us going for someone who's, coming towards the end of their career just as sort of a stopgap. We've been okay with the young lads as it is, but if we're going to go and get someone, it'll be an investment sort of around the 20, 25 million mark and someone who we can make into a Liverpool player as opposed to someone who's just going to fill a hole.
Absolutely. I think it's one of them situations, isn't it? And we'll break it down now. But I think it's very clear to everyone that Liverpool are in a situation where we need a centre-back. And that causes a few problems because it adds an additional fee because every club that Liverpool phone and every club who are sat there and see, Michael Edwards' name pop up on their phone will think, oh, well, they're desperate for a centre-back. So let's add 5-10 million on to this deal. But the situation we're in is that we don't want to be paying too much for centre backs. We're not the sort of club to rush into anything and pay over the odds for players. We've made it quite clear throughout this. The club's stance has been very clear throughout the coronavirus pandemic that we are being careful with our finances because obviously everyone knows businesses have been affected heavily by the COVID-19 pandemic. No fans in stadiums, football clubs have been very affected by it. So, I think it's very interesting, and it was interesting to see, the links to Botman with the 20 million euros. It seemed pretty perfect, didn't it, James?
Yeah, it seemed ideal because, he's clearly at a high level right now. He's putting out good stats, but he's also got room to improve. He's only 20, 21 years old, and he has recently arrived from Ajax, and yet he's hit the ground running in a, quite a tough league, really, if you're not at PSG. And so I was quite excited to see us linked, but then James Pearce has done his usual not going to happen mate sort of move, and whether it does happen, whether that's something from the club to try and ward off a little bit of price gouging, but I would have liked him, but it's not really the end of the world, is it?
That Kelly Brook fella that James Pearce follows on Instagram, I reckon she'd make a good centre back. But no, I think the interesting thing about the Botman thing was as you say, the Botman link. Was the fact that he's very young. He's recently moved from Ajax. It seemed like one of those deals where Liverpool had identified their number one target and they were going to do everything they could to bring him in. He signed for 8 million in the summer, so it seemed like it was going to be a cheap deal. I know it was quoted to now being 20 million euros, or which is around 16 million pounds, I believe. So it's an interesting one, but it's similar for me as the Shears one. It's a cheaper alternative to Shears, who again a lot of people really want, James.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I was one of the people that were saying, we have to sign him, we have to throw a blank check at him because he looks like the real deal. But, we weren't meant to spend money in the summer. We bought in Jota and Thiago, so I can't see us now more than ever spend the money in January. If we hadn't brought in Jota, we might have gone all out for a centre-back. But at the same time, it's so hard to tell what Liverpool's strategy is because everything's so hush-hush after the Van Dijk deal, notoriously being leaked by, associated journalists and stuff. And so whether we have got something in the works and the Liverpool sort of associated press are, keeping things quiet, trying to stop interest raising that price tag, we don't know. But I'd be very surprised if we didn't make any sort of move for anyone in January.
Well, Botman and Shears seem to be the two that are most linked with us right now. The name Ben White doesn't go away either. We did a video, obviously, last year on Ben White's situation. Has your opinion changed on Ben White since he's been at Brighton this season, James? Or do you still think he's a player that would really be good for the club?
I really like the look of him, and I think he can be a top player, but he hasn't really blown me head off this season. I don't know what I was expecting of such a young player coming to the Premier League for his first proper season, but I haven't really been overly impressed, and I know he's playing in quite a poor team right now. We haven't had a lot of luck go their way. Brighton are a decent side. They've just been quite unfortunate, but I don't know if we could get him for an affordable fee, which we wouldn't get because it's a Premier League side. Going to the Champions, that's obviously going to come with a premium, but in the future maybe. But after he's had this sort of run in the Premier League, I can't see it happening.
That's the thing for me. He's not blown anyone away. He's looked pretty average. He's looked okay, and therefore he doesn't strike me as a player that anyone should be spending anywhere near 40 or 50 million on. If it was half that, then yeah, absolutely, I'd be considering it. But with 40, 50 million pounds, the quoted price tag for him, I'd say still well clear of that. And the fact that we're still linked with him with that sort of fee surprises me massively. And I think if we're to go and spend that sort of money on Ben White, then Klopp knows that he can turn him into a very, very good player. Let's look at alternatives to them three, James. Obviously, we've mentioned Upamecano, someone like Koundé, who I really like from Sevilla, Konate as well, another one from Leipzig. Steer it clear from those names. Klopp said earlier on that it may be that we can't afford to go and buy someone in January, and therefore maybe he was insinuating that Liverpool are looking towards the loan market instead. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone that you'd be interested bringing in on a loan basis? And don't say Steven Corker.
No, definitely not Steven Corker. But I saw we've been linked with the Olympiacos centre-back Semedo. I think he's Portuguese. I think he's had a few issues in the past. I'm not too convinced on that at all. But if we're looking for a cost-effective solution, he could be it. I can't see him, ever coming to us because he's not really a Klopp kind of player at all. He's had a few issues in the past. But right now, I think with this much sort of uncertainty, clubs won't be wanting to let go decent, Liverpool caliber players on a loan deal because that doesn't make financial sense for them.
Klopp didn't like Saka with his fat burners and his antics on a tour, let alone someone who's been done for armed robbery. So I can't see the Semedo things. One thing that I was really attracted by was the William Saliba situation. I thought that would have been an excellent thing just to try because he's slightly more experienced than Reece Williams. Mm-hmm. So it was worth a punt. The thing I was put off by was the fact that he's not getting game time for Arsenal and for a team that was struggling in recent weeks. He wasn't getting a sniff. So, it's an interesting one. He now looks like he's on his way to Nice, apparently on a short-term loan until the end of the season. So I would have no idea who to look at for loans. I think at the start of the season, we thought Billy Koumetio would have a lot more first-team action than he did, but the injury set him back a bit, and now I'm on a stance where I think he's a very good centre-back. I still think he'll make it, and he'll be very good in the future, but I think this has come a bit too soon for him. I'm not too sold by Nat Phillips. I don't know about you, James. Reece Williams, I think, is the man. However, we are literally a Fabinho injury away or a Fabinho COVID case away from a very, very big issue, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It's ridiculous. It's an absolutely insane position that we're in, and the fact that Jordan Henderson could be our starting centre back in a couple of weeks' time. But I agree with what you said. Nat Phillips is okay. He'd be a decent sort of fourth choice centre back if you weren't able to bring someone else in. But for me, he's too slow on the turn. He's got a decent pass on him, but he doesn't really make me say wow, and that's fine. He was brought in sort of as an emergency sort of player who we weren't really expecting to see play for Liverpool again after that brief appearance against Everton. But, I give Reece Williams, it looks like the real deal. And he's only 19. He obviously had that loan spell last season and he's played 13 times for us so far this year. And I do like the look of him. I think he's had a few patchy games where he's looked a little bit in over his head, but that's to be expected when you're sort of thrown into the Liverpool first team, former European champions, world champions, all of that. That was gonna happen because what we weren't expecting him to hit the ground running after playing non-league football last season.
Absolutely, and if you haven't heard, you've probably been hidden under a rock. But just remember, Reece Williams was at Kidderminster this time last year. So yeah, the rise has been exceptional, and I think you can really see. Well, we can certainly see, and anyone that watches youth football will not have expected Reece Williams' rise to be where he is now and to put in the performances that he's put in against Tottenham, for example, where I think he didn't let Kane out of his pocket until a couple of weeks after. And, you know, I think it was one of them situations where his Premier League debut, he's well up for it, produced a spectacular performance. But, you know, I think it's a big risk to give him the nod for this second half of the season too. For me, the only way I can see Liverpool not bringing in a centre-back in January is if they are assured that Gomez and Van Dijk will be back before the end of the season. I think that is the only way that we don't see a centre-back coming in.
Yeah, definitely. We wouldn't have started the season with, you know, a midfielder playing centre-back and two kids playing, you know, deputy. And I can't see us carrying on the season that way, especially when we're top of the league with so much to lose. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me for us to carry on going the way we are in this position now, with Matip having the issues he's had and two other players out long term potentially. We need to bring someone in, and whether that is Botman and whether we'll see anything develop there over the next few weeks, or we look elsewhere and pluck someone out from the obscurities of Europe, we just don't know. But it's just, I really do hope we bring someone in.
Absolutely, and don't we all, James? Thank you very much for watching. Remember to comment down below who you want us to do our little video on of the individual players, the ones to watch series that me and James have been doing recently. Let us know who you want us to do next down in the comments. Remember to like, and if you're here and you aren't subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe for more content from me and James and others, and we shall see you very soon. Cheers. Ta-ra.